Take a moment, look at the disclaimer. This content is for educational, information, entertainment purposes only, and nothing should be taken as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any security at any time. We are here just to tell you how we analyze the markets, how BTA look at the markets. This is Rod from BTA, and we are known as the middle traders. We're going to look at what I call FAANGMT. FAANGMT. Okay, that's Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, and Tesla. I don't see how the overall market can go up if FAANGMT does not. Because think about it. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, and Tesla, they make up over 30% of the Standard & Poor's 500. Okay? So they make up almost over 30% of the Standard & Poor's 500. And they make up close to 50% of the NASDAQ 100. They make up close to 50% of the NASDAQ 100. So how in the world can the overall market, the Standard & Poor's 500, go up and rally if these large mega cap stocks, if it's not over 30%, it's very close to 30%. Okay? If these mega cap stocks would represent very close, okay, let's just go with that, very close to 30%, because they lost a lot of market capitalization. The last time I looked, it was very high. Okay, it was close to 30%. But they have lost a lot of market capitalization since the market has went into this bear market correction. Okay, they lost a lot of the stock prices have went down tremendously. So they lost a lot of their market cap. So it may be a little less now. But in any case, if these things are representing close to 30% of the Standard & Poor's and close to 50% of the NASDAQ 100, how in the world can the overall market go up if these stocks don't? So these things have to start finding a base and rallying. If we are to see any rally, any upward movement, in the overall market. So this is Facebook. This is a daily chart of Facebook. And as you can see, okay, Facebook, well, we had this big gap down right here. Okay, it gapped down hard. All right. So let's just overlook that for right now. We had a huge gap down in Facebook. But what I want to look at right now is look at this 50-day moving average. The red line, the 50-day moving average. Prices are basing right below the 50-day moving average. So, and we're right below the yellow line, which is, of course, our 21-day moving average, right? Let's expand this so I can make sure you can see it a little bit here. Okay? And let's move this up. So look at that red 50-day moving average, right? Look at that red 50-day moving average. It's trending down. It's starting to flatten out, but moving down just slightly, okay? And the yellow 21-day moving average. But prices are basing right below that, okay? And right now, we're sitting just below a tight 21-day moving average with the 5-day and the 9-day moving average are tight right next to each other. Prices are trading and closing right inside of those moving averages, right? If we expand that, you can see it. Look at that yellow 21-day moving average, that green 9-day, and that white 5-day moving average. Prices are trading right inside of here, okay? But this downward trending 50-day moving average is the problem, okay? So we're going to have to keep an eye on this stock, Facebook, and see if it can get above its 50-day moving average and start moving upward. Okay. Notice we made a low here, came back and made a higher low, and it's still holding a little higher. So maybe it's trying to get into a upward movement, but we have to see, because if the overall market pulls back, if these stocks pull back, it's going to pull the market down. Okay, so now that's our moving average. Let's look at it on the structural basis with our structural chart. Once it gets, you see this big gap down area. Okay, you see where it gapped down hard, right here. All right, well, let's just overlook that for right now. Okay, we know that eventually we're going to have to try to go back up and fill the gap. In other words, what I mean by fill the gap, prices have got to come off this bottom and head back up and fill inside this area. Just make it past this area. If the prices make it past this area and make it back up above this area, that top of the gap area, that's called filling the gap, because prices made it back up through the gap. That's called filling the gap. So eventually we're gonna look for Facebook to fill the gap. But right now, look what's happening with Facebook. This is very constructive action if the market can ever get back on good footing. Okay, this is very constructive. We're moving sideways. We want to see a stock starting to base and move sideways. That's good. That's what we want to see. We want to see a stock starting to move sideways and starting to base. Okay, starting to base and move sideways. So right now, you notice that we have this downward trending trend lines right here. Okay, and price is right at the trend line. We got this downward trending trend line across the top of prices, and we got this internal trend line. Okay, going across those internal fractals. All right, the previous fractals, where prices are sitting right on that. Okay, prices are sitting right on this internal trend line. Okay, going across this fractal right here. Okay, this internal trend line. Notice the prices coming right to it. Okay. Well, what we need to see prices stay above it and start making its way back up and start testing the top of this here channel, this sideways consolidation. And we also see we have a previous gap down, a recent gap right here, this recent gap that prices are trying to fill, these two gaps right here. You see prices are trying to fill them. All right. If I put a horizontal line from across this gap, better yet, let's do this. Let's just fill it in. Okay, let's just fill it in. Let's take this here. Let's just color it in right here. Okay, if I have a little difficulty, let's minimize it. Right, let's minimize it. Let me delete that. Okay, now let's see if we can fill it in with this here, with this box. Okay. And this pretty much covers both gap areas right there. Now let's go back and maximize it. Look at it again. See that? Okay, so prices. So we got both gap areas covered with this box here. This gap area here and this gap area here. Where prices have made it back above both of these gaps. That's called filling the gap. And we're sitting right above the top of this prior resistance area at 192.76. So can we stay above this? Can we stay above this and start moving back up and start testing this resistance area at 205 and then make it above 205? Well, we're going to need Facebook and the other FAANGMT stocks to start doing this. Start making their way off the bottom if the market is ever to really start going on a run. These stocks make up too much of the overall indexes. Okay, their market cap, their size, their percentage of the overall index is just too much to be ignored. Okay, we can't ignore it. It's just way too much. The market can't go up if these things are still suffering. Okay, now if we just look at the relative strength line, relative strength index, we can see that we're still below 50. Okay, let's expand this. You can still see we're still below 50 for Facebook. So it's real. The momentum is really still to the downside. Okay, the bears are still in control. Look at that tight sideways action on the chart above. All right. So Facebook is basing. That's good. We want to keep an eye on it. All right. We want to keep an eye on it. If the market is to break out, we're going to see Facebook and the other FAANGMT stocks go. They have to. They just make up too much of the indexes. Now, look at the ADX line. Look at the ADX down below. All right. Let's expand this a little bit so you can see it. Okay, let's open this up a little bit. Let's move this around a little bit so you can see it. Look at that ADX down below. Okay, look at that ADX. All right, so the red line is representing the sellers. The green line is representing the buyers, and the yellow line is representing the trend. So the sellers don't have control. They have a little more control than the buyers because the red line is above the green. But they're losing some of the control because it's pointing down. The green line, which represents the buyers, is still pointing down. So they're not really gaining all that much control. Okay, the red line is trending down. The sellers are losing some of its control. They still in more control than the buyers because the red line is above the green. Okay, but the yellow line represents the trend. Well, there is no trend. It's below 20. It's at 1493. Well, we can see it's no trend because we've been looking at the chart here, and we see that it's moving sideways. So the ADX is telling us there's no trend. We're consolidating sideways, and no one has really taken full control. Okay, the bears are in more control than the buyers. The bulls, the sellers are in more control than the buyers because of the simple fact of how much this stock has collapsed. Okay. And we see there's no volume really coming in. All right. Our green line is the line of closing prices up top. The yellow line is our on balance volume. And as you can see, we still below this resistance area. We tested it, pulled back. Same thing with the accumulation distribution line. We tested it and pulled back. So there's no real accumulation coming in. There's no real volume coming in. The large institutional investors are not really starting to buy Facebook yet. Okay, we see that on the on balance volume line. We see the momentum lines and everything else. Let's look at the weekly chart and see what we see. Look at the weekly chart. Okay, we are definitely below all of the longer term moving averages. Okay, so let's just zoom in right here just a little bit. Okay, so we can make sure we see this well. Look at the 4-week moving average. It's pointing down. Look at prices, still below that 8-week moving average, which is the green line. And look at the 13-week moving average, the yellow moving average line, the 13-week moving average line. Prices are stuck below that. So we're going to need to see prices start getting above that 13-week moving average line. That's similar to what we saw with the 50-day moving average on the daily chart. We need to see it get above those levels, right? Those moving averages. So prices stuck below the 13-week moving average and it's trending down, okay? Now, let's look at the structural level here. You see that on the weekly chart? You see that? That's our structure right there. That's our price structure. We need to see it get above, okay? We need to get above this 204 level, okay? We need to see it get above this $200.04 level right here, 204 cents right here. This red horizontal resistance area. You see we've been consolidating and moving sideways under that, but we are trying to stay above this internal trend line coming way off the lows, way back from the March 2020 lows. Okay, we're trying to stay above that internal trend line. Look at it. It's trying to stay above it, trying to close above it recently, but we still had to get above this overhead resistance area. Okay, then we got this downward trending trend line across the highs. Okay, across the highs, that once we get above that horizontal resistance area at 204 cents, we're going to have to see if we can break above this. We break above this, start resting above that, consolidate, and then move up. Hopefully we can get up to 224. All right. So we got to keep an eye on Facebook. All right. Let's keep an eye on Facebook and see when it can start breaking above that 13-week moving average. Okay. Let's see when it can start breaking above that 13-week moving average and start breaking above this red line at $200.04 where we trapped right now. Okay. And then that is going to give us a clue. Can we get above that 13-week moving average? If Facebook start performing well along with the other FAANGMT stocks, then I think the market is going to probably start moving upward. But if these things don't move, it ain't going to happen, okay? It just ain't going to happen. So these stocks are known to pull the overall market completely down or push it to the moon if they go up, okay? Now, let's look at one chart I would like to show you right now, my SW chart. And as you can see, look right here, okay? I got the same kind of trend lines there. Let me explain this to you a little bit. I got the same trend lines there, okay? The same consolidation area. You see that right there, okay? Same consolidation area. All right, let me maximize this a little bit. But what I want to show you is also a 21-week moving average right here in yellow on this chart. I have a 21-week moving average. So look how prices are staying below that 21-week moving average and trending down. So not only is the 13-week moving average holding prices, but this yellow also on this particular chart represents the 21-week moving average, okay? And notice, this line right here is a relative strength line, not the relative strength index. This is a relative strength line. And it compared the performance of Facebook compared to the Standard & Poor's 500. When it's above the green line here, it turns blue. That's telling you that Facebook is outperforming the Standard & Poor's. When it's below that line, it's red. It's telling you it's underperforming. So Facebook is having an issue as of lately, right, since the gap down, an issue outperforming the Standard & Poor's. Okay, it has an issue outperforming the Standard & Poor's. And you can see from right here, okay, it's been, from this area here, it's been underperforming. It's been in the red, underperforming the overall market, the Standard & Poor's 500. Going back to 10/8/2021, okay? 10/8/2021, 10/1/2021. So going back to 2021, okay, we can see that it's been underperforming when that big gap down and things of that nature. It's an underperformer. So what we'll be looking for is, on this particular chart, is the Facebook to get above this downward trending 21-week moving average, to get above this downward internal trend line, break above this horizontal resistance area at right around $200, right? And we want to see some volume on the volume bars coming in, okay? When they start breaking out, we want to see that volume expanding and getting above average, okay? And then we want to see this relative strength line to start getting above zero and turn back to blue. That's telling us that Facebook is outperforming the overall market. And then, of course, down below here is our on-balance volume, all right? And we want to see that break above its prior high, which is going to act as resistance and start moving up. If we can start seeing that happen with Facebook, then I think that that would be very constructive, okay? Along with the other FAANGMTs. So that's what we need to look for. These stocks are basing. These stocks are basing. We're going to look at some of the fundamentals on these stocks also. They're still earning money. Okay, they still earning money. It's not like these companies don't earn any money. All right, they might have been a little overvalued. They might have been a little overvalued at one point, but they still earning money. Okay, so it's not like they're not earning money. So they're not complete dogs. So eventually, these stocks are probably going to bounce back, but we're going to be watching them for the time that they do. All right. Now let's look at Facebook with Lois real quick. All right. Look at Lois with Facebook right now. All right. This is the daily chart of Lois, right? This is a daily chart of Lois with Facebook. And as you can see, we are still, okay, trading right below that 21-day moving average, right? And Lois is turning blue, but it's right below the 21-day moving average, okay? But Lois has been consolidating sideways because the price is not going, the stock is not going anywhere. It's fluctuating up and down in a sideways channel. We saw that, okay? So Lois right now is consolidating because of that, all right? But what we were going to want to see is eventually price getting above this 21-day moving average, breaking this internal trend line, Lois turning blue and moving up, starting to trend up as we test the upper trend line and the overhead resistance area right here, and for Facebook to come out of this sideways channel. That's what we're going to be looking for with lowers, okay? And on this chart here, particularly with lowers. So that's Facebook, all right? That's Facebook. Now we're going to take a look at, let's do Apple next. Then we take a look at Amazon, and we go through the FAANGMTs. Because we're going to need these stocks. They are basing. I'm telling you, they are basing. And this is a good thing, especially if we were in a bull market and we seeing these stocks sell off for whatever reason they may be selling off, right? But if it was in a bull market and these stocks are basing like this would be a very good opportunity, okay? And it may be a very good opportunity now if the market starts to rally and come off the bottom, because a sideways basing stock, when the market gets ready to turn, can be very explosive moves. The longer it goes sideways, the higher it can go when it breaks out. All right. So that's Facebook. So look for part 2. We're going to try to pick it up with Amazon. See if we get Apple and Amazon in there together, and then we'll take it from there. All right. See you in the next video.